Now it's stripping time.
This is Hard Parking, brought to you by Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I am your host, Jhae Pfenning. I am recording from my home studio in Gilbert, Arizona. Jam-packed show today. Mr. Bob Marshall, Bobchat, is back. New segment. We're going to talk about movies. Speaking of movies, I recently saw Ant-Man 3 Quantumanium. Thought it was really cool. Critics didn't like it. It is tied or maybe the lowest or the second lowest MCU rated movie by the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. But the variance is like 40-something% versus 84% for the people. And it's funny when it comes to critics because people say, well, I never rely on the critics. Critics don't know anything. If the score is low, that's what you say. If the score is high and you like the movie, you say, even the critics like the movie. Look at the movie. It's critically acclaimed. Also, Divya Sangam is back. Fatal car crash report. Fatalities were declining before rising. We're going to talk about that, find out what that really means, some surprising statistics for you. And we check in with NSXTRA Chris Cut, who is camping from inside his NSX. He has the famous NSX with the NSX trailer, the camper on top, and the Moto Campo. That is the guy. All that after this word from 4Wheel Online. Jhae Pfenning here, and I want to tell you guys about 4Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They are dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker model on the road. The truck products cover everything you need to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. And if you need a tire and wheel package, head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. So visit them online at 4Wheel Online or call them at 813-769-2451. Again, that's 4Wheel Online, the number 4, Wheel Online. Had kind of a funny thing happen. So you know how you can go to Nike.com, you can custom order some shoes. You can customize your shoes. So I went on Nike a few months ago. My sister-in-law has a friend at Nike who can kind of give us a hookup, like 40% off employee discount. So I figured, hey, why not modify some Air Force Ones? Now, I've never owned Air Force Ones prior to last year. And I'm one of those counter hype people. So everybody, I need 2 pair, stomp it in my Air Force Ones, Nelly. I'm like, I don't need that. Everybody's doing that. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. But Farisat, who was the director of NS Expo 2022, bought them for the committee. I was on the committee. He got custom colored ones. They're really cool. It said NSX 22 on the back. Super comfortable. I was shocked. Typically, I'm a Adidas Ultra Boost Adidas person. So I decided to go ahead and custom order them, do the colorway of the NSX. So it was white, gray, black. If you guys saw the NSX the last few months, it's all white now. But the last few months, I had kind of this grayscale color theme going with it. And it was pretty fucking cool. But those are also the colors. The official colors of One Auto are white and black. So I got the shoes customized on the back. I had OA on one heel and OA on the other heel because they're only limited by 3 letters. Fast forward, I get these shoes, I open them up and I look on them and I'm looking at the front and the ones I receive have like a canvas toe and I know I would have got leather. So that was my first thing. I was like, I don't know if this is really what I picked. I'll have to go look. And I'm looking at the back of the shoe and I'm like, I don't know. And I kind of look at my wife. I go, hey, these aren't really, she goes, just don't say anything. Just make something up. And I thought, okay, it's not that I'm going to upset my brother-in-law who brought him over. Like, we paid money for it. We paid good money for these shoes, even though we got them on discount. And the customization was important to me. It is important to me. So I sat up here and I thought about it for a while. Then I called my brother-in-law up here. I go, hey, let me talk to you about these shoes. Discussed it with him. And the way I could best explain it is if you have a favorite sports team, we'll take football. Let's say you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. And you get these shoes customized in the color of the Cowboys. And on the back of one heel, you have cow. On the back of the other heel, you have boy. People know when they see those shoes, they're going to be like, oh, those are Cowboy colors. And then when they see the heel, it's like cowboy. Oh, that's the Dallas Cowboys. That's pretty cool. So I broke that down to him like that. Big Bills fan. I go, what if it was like Buffalo? It's Buffalo. The spelling of Buffalo doesn't really work out that way, but When I looked at the back of my shoes, instead of them having an OA and an OA for one auto, one shoe had 101 and the other shoe had AAO. No idea what that's supposed to mean, just a bunch of gibberish. So we all agreed that, well, he and I agreed. I said, look, I know they're customized. I know they're probably all sales final. Just ask your wife, ask your friend, just find out. If it's going to be a hassle, don't worry about it. I'll just keep the shoes. Not a huge deal. It is a huge deal, actually, but I don't want them to think it's a huge deal. So he said he's going to look into it, so we'll see what happens. OA for one auto on each shoe versus 101, what does that mean? And AAO. That's funny. Oh, I should have got 130 on one and NSX on the other. I'm an idiot. That's going to be my next pair. Coming up, Divya Sangam, Bob Marshall, and Chris Cut, Mr. NSXTRA. Mr. Cut, describe to me your exact location and situation.
So it's I'm in some vacant lot. I don't know. I think it used to be like an old insurance company. We have a lot of those in Connecticut. And I'm in the middle of a blizzard. And I'm in my tent with my dog on top of the NSX trailer. And I am testing out my new heater. So I hooked up a Chinese diesel heater in the trailer, and I exhausted it. I ran the exhaust underneath and out of the trailer, and then I ran all the ductwork up to the tent. And I'm just testing it out. I have it all the way as low as it'll go right now, and it's actually keeping me really toasty in here. And I have a couple carbon monoxide detectors, 2 of them for redundancy. But it's snowing out pretty hard. I think we're getting like 9 inches tonight or something, they're saying. So I'm just hoping that this place doesn't have like a security guard and that plows aren't going to come in and plow me in where I'll be stuck. But I brought tire chains just in case. So
not only do you have a half an NSX turned into a trailer and you have a camper on top of your NSX, but you also have chains for your tires on said NSX.
Yeah, not exactly. I called them tire chains, but they're not actually chains. They're called tire socks. They are comparable to chains. I did a ton of research.
But they don't damage the road, probably?
Well, they won't damage the road, but so they actually work just as well as chains. They actually perform better for stopping. They actually stop better. You can't go over 35 miles an hour with them. I think as soon as you hit pavement, they start to shred up, and so do chains. But they shred up a lot quicker than chains when you hit dry pavement. Also, one of my concerns is that they might come off and like wrap themselves around an axle or something. So that would be bad. We'll see. Yeah. I mean, I guess theoretically that could happen with chains too, but they're probably on the tires more securely. But they seem pretty cool, and I'm excited to use them. So
I feel like your vehicle would be incapacitated if that were to happen.
Yeah, probably. I have tools and stuff, so I would get it off pretty quickly. But I also have spares. I brought 6 of them, so I have 2 for the trailer wheels, 2 for the drive wheels, and 2 for the front wheels.
So you've talked about your setup on our One Drink Wednesday with myself and Wes.
Yep.
The listeners are probably mind blown right now. There are still people, and I shared with you a couple weeks ago, a friend of mine from high school sent me your car and said, "Are you kidding me?" And I asked him, I said, how are you just now seeing this guy with 1.5 NSX as a dog in a camper? So I would imagine by now it's everywhere, but apparently not.
No, it's still, whenever I go out on drive, I always get people like sending me pictures on Instagram and stuff that have never seen me before. And I have the Instagram handle on the side of the window. So they see it and they're like, "Oh, I just saw that thing and it's awesome," but they'd never seen it before. So not everybody's on Instagram, I guess.
I guess not. I guess some people have lives, unlike people like you and me.
Yeah. Somebody just sent me a message a few minutes ago he has a BMW wagon and he made a trailer out of it, and it's really awesome. And my idea was to take the mangled front half of the trailer and make a racing simulator. I haven't gotten around to it. I've been busy and I don't really have the room for it. I have the racing simulator already. I just kind of have to throw it in there. But this guy actually put the racing simulator inside of his trailer, which is a very cool idea. Yeah, I thought that was neat. He definitely outdid himself. He did a really good job.
So is this your pilot night? Is this your test flight with this setup?
Yeah, I'm just testing it out, seeing how it goes. I was a little bit concerned about how hot the the piping was getting, because I didn't want it to melt the canvas, but I found a way around that. I found some different material that seems to be working. It is like a really dry heat, which kind of sucks.
Arizona.
And it's like, it's almost too hot in here. So I actually had to crack a window, but it's also really windy outside right now. Like the tent's getting blown around, and it's not an insulated tent either. So
that leads me to my next question. Is there a thermostat on said diesel powered heater?
there is. It's on the actual unit, which is below me inside the actual trailer. So I want to wire that up in here, but I do have a remote control that I can control it with from up here, but it's not a thermostat. I can just turn it up and down. The actual thermostat I need to wire up here.
Now, does Chris Cut run hot or run cold? Typically,
I like to sleep in the cold usually, but not this type of cold. The wind chill, I don't know what it is right now, but it's definitely freezing, below freezing.
So what happens in the morning when you wake up and you're covered with 2.5 feet of snow? I know you said 9 inches, but then there's this thing called drifts for people who are listening who don't know what this actually means. 9 inches could easily be 3 feet.
Yeah, it could in some places. Although in Connecticut, the weather, the Weather Channel is wrong everywhere. We might just get an inch or something. Who knows? I don't know. It actually looks like there might already be an inch on the ground. So
when are you coming to Arizona?
I don't know. I really want to get out there as soon as possible. Things keep happening that keep stifling my progress. So, but I'll get out there eventually. Hopefully within the next few months. I know I keep saying that, but I really do want to get out there.
You're like the dad who keeps telling his kid he's going to come pick him up after soccer practice, but then you never show up.
I'm the shitty dad.
Yeah, you're the shitty dad. And I'm standing there every night asking, when the coach is like, "Hey, Jay, you need a ride?" I'm like, "No, my dad's coming." But
I'll make it up to you, Jay.
Yeah, you gotta. That's exactly. I'll make it up to you, kiddo. Here, I stopped by Walmart and bought you this remote control car. Thanks, Dad. I wanted that 6 years ago.
I know some friends of mine are trying to find out where I am right now because they want to come peg me with snowballs.
Don't tell them. Don't send your ping. It's like Pokemon Go. It's like NSXTRA Go.
Yeah. In the morning time when I wake up and I'm covered in snow, I'm going to I don't have the Moto Compo with me, so the trailer's pretty much empty. So I'm actually going to cook inside the trailer and see how that works out.
Nice. Now I'm trying to do a visual now because I could just see you in some lot. Because the last time you told me about some lot you're in, the situation was different. It was a little more bleak. This time you're in good spirits.
Yeah.
You don't have a flat, and your trailer didn't fucking break on you, and you're not in the middle of the ghetto.
Yeah. Right now I'm not.
All right, man. Well, I just wanted to check in with you. We got to get you back on the show for a lengthy, longer talk.
Yeah.
You're a fun person to talk to. We don't always agree on everything, but we always respect each other, and I love that about you. And it's always a fun conversation.
Same here, man. I always like being on and talking to you. I liked what you were talking about earlier about that video you shared about the mechanic test driving the client's car. Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that?
I do. So I can only tell you that,
because we both have limited information. I have limited information on that situation.
Okay, well, I can only tell you my experiences. So I remember one time on the forums, there was a fellow NSX owner who had brought his NSX in for a timing belt and water pump job. And the tech had asked him if he ever wanted to sell his car, he would be interested in buying it. And the guy just kind of shrugged it off and said, yeah, whatever, but took his number and never planned on calling him. And he'd got the car back, and about a week later, he said, you know what? I'm going to entertain it and see if this guy was serious and wants to buy it. Maybe I will sell it. So he couldn't find the guy's number, so he called the Acura dealership, and they said, oh, he's not here today, but this is his name. So he looked up the guy on Facebook, the tech that worked on his car who offered to buy it, and on the guy's Facebook profile picture was his NSX out in front of the tech's house. And the tech's friends on Facebook were commenting saying, thanks for letting us drive the NSX. So that means this guy the tech had taken the customer's NSX home and was letting people drive it. And that's really messed up. And the guy was on the forum saying, what should I do? And I was telling him he should demand at NC1 or go on the news and go live at 5. But I don't know. As far as taking people's cars and driving them. I mean, it's if you're a mechanic and you work on nice cars, it's going to be hard not to get on it. And I had a good friend of mine who would take care of people's collections, and he used to call me up and say, "Hey, I have this R8 V10 Plus, and you need to drive one," because he knew I'd never driven one, and I said, "Yeah, okay." And we never did anything. And then about a month later, he called me again and said, "Hey, I have this V10 Plus here again. Come for a ride." So I said, "Okay." So I went for a ride, and he let me drive it. And it was actually owned by a 75-year-old woman. Now, he had no business letting me drive this client's car, and I drove it, and I got on it, and I wouldn't say no,
Right.
But that kind of stuff just happens, I guess. It's a shame that the people's engine broke, and I think the fact that they have footage of it is definitely going to help their case.
Potentially, right?
Yeah, potentially.
So I can cover my thoughts about it after we hang up, or I can cover my thoughts about it now.
I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
So my thoughts are, as a friend of mine, and he knows all these people because he does all sorts of custom work. Super nice guy. About 3 years overdue on the podcast. But that video, because at the time he sent it to me, it didn't have a lot of likes and didn't have a lot of forwards, which tells me it's kind of new, right? But at first I was watching it and I was like, okay, that's screwy. These two, service guys and the service manager took this woman's car for a joyride. They noticed that it had low oil and they turned it in, oil leak, something was wrong with the motor of the video, and they submitted it to Acura, and Acura said, well, it's going to cost $175,000 to replace your motor, which I've seen that before because it costs them more to make the car than what they sold the car for.
Yeah. Well, there was that NC1 owner that had his oil pumps replaced, and that was $30,000.
Exactly. And there's a guy right now on Facebook who's, I think he's reached a settlement with Acura because it would cost more to buy the motor and install the motor than it would be just to replace the car, get him a new car.
Yeah.
And we're out of cars. There's no more NSXs, period. Like, that's my fear is anything happens to my car, it is what it is. That's why I'm trying to work on my daily more often. But in the video, she claimed that Acura offered to buy the car back or settle for $20,000. And she was obviously incredibly offended. But watching the video, she's a professional race car driver who works at Speed Vegas or one of those speed places. This apparently was an NSX that was used at one of those exotic car places. In fact, I probably drove this fucking NSX. In 2017 at Speed Vegas, I drove a black NSX around the track.
It's your fault. You blew it up.
I probably blew it up 5 years ago, and they're just now figuring it out. 6 years ago, right? But the thought is, you submit that video, and you have not only technicians driving the shit out of your car, but there's actual overlay footage of Speed Vegas. That's going to be a hard claim to make to any car manufacturer, I would imagine, because it's two sides of the story, right? Cars are made to withstand all sorts of abuse. But if you're covering it from a warranty, you and I both probably know this on a personal level, you don't have to do much for them to void your warranty. And if you're using the car on the track all the time, because what we don't know, what the video doesn't tell us, we don't know if Acura pulled the VIN and found out that they've never done their service with a certified Acura tech.
No.
Because it's an NC1 platform NSX. Like, you have to be qualified to work on the car.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. I'm sure normal shops could do it, but we all know the car culture, the manufacturer, almost anything voids your warranty. Because I have to believe that if this were a Ferrari would not honor it as well.
Yeah.
And that's my thought. Because initially I was like, there's got to be more to this story than Acura offered $20,000. What should we do?
Yeah. Well, they should. I don't know. I think for the sake of kind of getting rid of the situation, they should do whatever they have to do to appease the customer. Otherwise, it's bad press, But
do you think Acura cares? I mean, we both have Acuras.
Well, they make more money off service than they do their cars, I'm sure.
Yeah, because the thought is, I've seen them try to buy people's cars back before. There's a guy, I think Robert Lane out of Florida, who made a big stink. He had an issue with the rear alignment when they replaced the fuel tank in his 2017.
Yeah.
And he was playing super difficult. They offered to buy his car back, and he said, fuck you. No, I'm just going to blow your name up all over the place. So they tried to make it right. The guy on Facebook right now, they offered him $170,000 for his car.
He was the one with the $30,000 oil pumps too.
Could have been, yeah. It was a blue one or whatever out of Florida.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be cars that have situations, but I think out of all those examples, this one would be the toughest to try to get Acura to pay for.
I know I had a friend who bought a blue NC1 in 2017, and he leased it. And I guess as on his way home, something happened to the transmission, and he had to have it towed back to the dealership. And they let him out of his lease because he was causing a big fuss.
Yeah.
But they made him sign a non-disclosure.
Yeah.
But he told me, and I don't like him anymore. So,
Robert, you don't fuck me over. I'm spreading your news.
It actually wasn't Robert. It was somebody in Connecticut here.
Marcus, I'm just going to name people until I land it right. But yeah, I mean, but at least the manufacturer tried to do something, right? It's like, if I'm leasing a car and something happens and they let me out of my lease, then I basically just had a cool car for a while and now I'm moving on to the next car.
Yeah, well, he had a cool car for like an hour.
Yeah. Things happen. I have a key in my Acura cabinet over here that came from a blown up NSX just before they released them out here. They came out and they ran it without oil for like 6,000 miles and the car blew up.
Jeez. Were they doing that just for like testing?
It was testing. Yeah, it was before the car officially came out.
There's a video on YouTube of people taking the drain plug out of a 22 RE on like a Toyota pickup.
Yeah. And
just run. And it's a long video. It just keeps going with no oil.
That's like remember that was it the 90s or early 2000s, the Castrol Syntec commercials where they drained all the motors and they would just run all of them until they find out which one seized up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the answer. I think if I was Acura, I would just pay the people to give them what they want to go away kind of thing.
Maybe.
Yeah, because like I said, they make more money off text than they do selling cars. So
I think if I'm this blonde lady complaining about this and I make it a reel on Instagram, maybe I don't show the overlay of Speed Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Just show the guys, the technicians at the dealership taking your car for a joyride.
Yeah. I don't trust Acura dealerships. My friend Mike here, he brought his NSX to a place and they only have NSX techs working on it. And it was a first gen NSX and they had the twin disc clutch with the mid plate and you have to do the mid plate initialization and they didn't do it. And they charged him thousands of dollars for the clutch job and he made it a couple blocks down the road until the clutch was fried. So it's like I don't trust anybody working on my car.
I was going to say it could be any dealer, honestly.
Yeah. I don't trust anybody I mean, I try to avoid it and do it on nobody. Look, if I was Jay Leno, yeah, I'm not going to get my hands greasy. I'm probably going to pay somebody else to do stuff, but I just don't think anybody's going to work out. It's human nature. Nobody's going to love your stuff as much as you do,
Dude, I say that about everything. No one's going to take care of your shit like you take care of your shit. That's why I don't have a pickup truck right now.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a great mechanic. He does such great work on his own stuff. When I bring him something, it's just yeah.
Hey, Tony, where you at with that? Oh, yeah, I started working on it a couple months ago, and I got clients. Well, I'm your client. Yeah, but you're my boy.
Yeah, exactly. That's how that goes.
That's a pro and con of having a buddy that does stuff.
Yeah, well, and the other thing goes the other way too. Having partners, I just went half with somebody on a car, and we don't exactly see eye to eye on everything about what we want to do to it. So.
All right, Chris.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, enjoy your night. If you get lonely, you can shoot me a text. I'm a couple hours behind you.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not a popsicle in the morning.
Hopefully my voice will keep you warm.
Supposedly this thing is very efficient, and it 1 gallon will last 3 nights. 1 gallon of diesel.
What do you have coming out for videos soon? Do you want to tell the people?
So I haven't been bumping them out as much as I used to. My last 3 videos were the heater install, and I've been waiting for it to snow out so I could make this video. So, yeah, you'll see a boring video of me freezing.
So this will come out next Monday. So March 6th.
It probably won't be out for a while. I'm probably going to wait a couple weeks before I even start editing it, to be honest. We'll see.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, you'll help me promote it. Then you guys want to know firsthand what's going on, and then they'll listen and they'll hear us bullshitting about Speed Vegas and
Yeah, honestly, if people want to know what's going on with me, they're better off listening to your podcast, because I think I've always announced things on your thing first before I've actually ever seen it on YouTube. So
He is NSXTRA Chris Cut. He's one of the most original NSX modifiers that live in the modern day, and everyone hates him because he's a redneck with 1.5 NSXs and a camper and a dog and a motocompo.
all right, later, man. Have a good night.
It is time for our new segment, returning special guest, Mr. Bob Marshall, a.k.a. Bobchat, from up above the U.S. border. It is the Canada. Bobchat on Movies. This is the first official Bobchat on Movies session. What do you have for us?
What is going on? First off, how are you?
If I were doing any better, I'd be you. You like that?
I'm not doing that great, but I'm better now that we are doing this. We are going to take a look at some movies. The first one we're going to do, the only one for today, we're going to take a trip back to the magical year of 1992. Do you remember that? Do you remember 92, Jay?
I do.
I was born in 1992.
Are you lying to me?
I swear to God. I know. You're old as shit.
God. So in 1992, depending on what part of 1992, I was either finishing up my sophomore year in high school, I was watching
oh my God.
The Bulls versus Blazers in the NBA Finals, or I was starting my junior year in high school.
Well, it's a jam-packed year for you, right?
Yeah, it's three
Well,
big
let's
things.
hope that you had the Let's hope you had the opportunity to see this little cinematic gem. Have you ever seen a movie called Captain Ron?
Captain Ron, I have not. Tell us about it.
Have you seen it though?
I have not. I just said I didn't.
Oh, I thought you said you haven't talked about it. You have to yell at me. Okay. So
My
Captain
apologies.
Ron.
I'm a little emotionally unstable right now.
That's okay. I bring out the worst in people. I get it. So Captain Ron, 1992. Okay. Two stars in the movie. Kurt Russell. You know him. You love him.
Everybody knows and loves Kurt Russell.
Martin Short. You know him. You love him. He's amazing.
Whatever happened
right?
to him, by the way. We don't have time for that, but
Martin Short, he's doing a thing now, Murderville. It's another show. We can get into that another day with Steve Martin and what's her face? She used to date Justin Bieber. Selena Gomez is in it as well too.
So anyway, the movie, the Chicago one. Okay, so I hold on. IMDb describes it as.
Let me tell you about it. Don't pull up IMDb.
A Chicago.
What does IMDb give
it says a Chicagoan inherits an old yacht. He, his wife, daughter, and son fly to a Caribbean island and hire a dubious Captain Ron to sail them on an adventure to Miami. I feel like I've actually seen this, but I wouldn't remember it.
So what happens is what is their name? Now I can't even think. The Harvey family. So the Harvey family. So yeah, he inherits a yacht from his uncle that he hasn't seen in years. He hasn't seen the boat since he was a kid. And they're like, oh great, we're gonna go down to this Caribbean island. We're gonna sail it up to Miami. We're gonna sell it, get a bunch of money. But then the yacht company appraises the boat and realizes that it's a piece of shit. So instead of sending an appropriate captain, they're like, oh, just send him a local. And the local is Captain Ron, a.k.a. Kurt Russell. And basically, he is just this fucking character, and they get in all kinds of trouble. Is he
kind of like a loser throwaway? They think he's a real captain, and he advertises himself as such, but they find out that he's kind of a phony.
Well, he's not necessarily a phony, but he's not what they expected, right? And then basically hilarity ensues. And they get in all kinds of trouble. There's an amazing soundtrack too, by the way. You got Bob Marley songs. Have you ever heard of a band called Blinky and the Roadmasters?
I have not.
Okay, I'm going to send you a song.
Please do.
They have a song called Caroline. Look that up. If Hard Parking listeners, look up Caroline by Blinky and the Roadmasters. If you want a feel-good song, that's your fucking jam right there. But basically, he's just this oddball character, and he just gets them in all kinds of trouble. And needless to say, the trip to Miami, it doesn't go as planned. So this has been a staple in my house for years. When I was growing up, we used to watch this at Christmas all the time. I don't know why kidding. Christmas. We're in camp. we're in Canada, so what we do doesn't need to make sense to you guys. But yeah, so every time I love Captain Ron. I'll watch it at least once a year, no problem. If not more.
So I need to check out Captain Ron.
You have to watch Captain Ron. If you don't like Captain Ron, I'm going to be super disappointed. But I will strive to bring you something better next time.
All right.
I want to try to find movies that you haven't seen.
There's a ton of movies I haven't seen.
I thought you were well versed in cinema.
Yeah, it all depends. It's all relative.
Well, I've got for the next time that we do this, I have a little piece. You know, people say Americana, right? Obviously. So I don't know if other people say this, but I like to coin the term Canadiana. So little pieces of part of our heritage. So
is there a Cafe Canadiana?
No, there is not.
So we got you beat.
We do have we have Cafe Americana. I know that's your drink of choice. That's your caffeine of choice, is it not?
It is. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a latte man.
Well, we're going to be visiting you with a latte episodes in the future.
I want to leave you with a quote from Captain Ron. Is that okay?
It is.
Okay, so they're like talking to him, and they're like, oh, where'd you learn to park the boat like that? He's like, oh, I learned that parking the old Sarah. They're like, Sarah. He's like, yeah, the USS Saratoga. Like, Captain Ron, you drove the USS Saratoga? He's like, yeah, till we hit a reef off the coast of Australia. The damn thing ran the whole coast.
That's funny.
Like, the Great Barrier Reef, Captain Ron. Yeah, there's a lot in there. I think you would really enjoy it. I think everyone listening would really like it. Kind of a hidden gem. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's awesome. And it's apparently only 99 minutes. So if you've got the time, make the time.
We'll make the time. Talk to you next time.
Can I rate the movies as well? I want to rate them out of 5. Captain Ron, 5 fucking stars.
5 stars. Only because you see it every year.
Bobchat. Well, that's not true. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't watch it every year. It's awesome.
Fair enough.
All right. It's Bob from Bobchat.
She is Divya Sangam, back from ValuePenguin.com. Today we are going to talk about fatal car crash reports. Divya, what do you have for us?
So, Jay, we actually spoke earlier in the year about how auto insurance rates are going up. And one of the reasons that I brought up for why rates are increasing is, the number of accidents happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going up. And, so we were curious, like, is this something that's been happening over the past 2 years because of COVID, or is this part of a larger trend? So we found a really good data set that looks 2 decades into the past, and we were able to identify, where crashes have been happening, what kind of car crashes have been happening, and it just sort of tells a story we've been telling about being safe on the roads. So pretty much what we found is that from 2007 to 2014, fatal car crashes, which is the most devastating of accidents, were actually declining before they started to rise again in 2014. And, there are many reasons for it. Some people say it's because of distracted driving, because there's more tech in the cars. But whatever the reason is, this is really interesting that people were safe up until 2014, and then they started driving dangerously again. The other thing we found is that nearly a third of fatal car crashes were caused by speeding. Now, you would think it would be DUIs or distracted driving, but no, the number one cause of fatalities is speeding. The second thing we found is older drivers were involved in a larger share of fatal crashes than younger drivers. Drivers age 65 and above. That's what I was talking about when I said older drivers.
Right.
But the number of older drivers who are getting involved in accidents are decreasing. But the teen drivers, so drivers age 15 to 20, they were only involved in about 12% of fatal car crashes in 2020, but that's an increase. And this is the third highest increase. We also found that there were more pedestrians dying. So, I just thought the teenager point was really interesting because we're kind of heading into high school graduation season. You're a lot of kids are going to get cars from their parents. And I think it's so important for parents to talk to their teenagers about responsible driving and just staying safe out there. And also the pedestrian point was really interesting because, we're all, especially for a lot of Gen Z and, younger millennials who live in cities or in places where they commute and they walk a lot, like you have to be careful because you could get into an accident. It's just scary to think that even the act of walking on the sidewalk could be dangerous to you, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, and we have a lot of listeners that do have school-age children. Some have many years before they're actually driving. Some have a few years. Some are actually driving now. These numbers are there. I guess they are a little alarming, but there's got to be like solid data that goes into them. Obviously, the nearly 1 in 3 fatal car crashes is caused by speeding, and it would seem as if that would feel like it would be obvious, but I don't. Do you know how they're defining speeding? I mean, speeding is right. The speed limit is 65, right? So if you're going to 70, technically you're speeding. You're going to 90, you're really speeding. Do we know what that variance is, or it doesn't really matter? Speeding is speeding.
Speeding is basically going above the speed limit. And, consider this, when you're inside the car and you're going 5 miles above the speed limit, it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you hit something at 65 miles an hour, it can do serious damage.
Sure.
So that's the one thing that, we don't often think about, especially when we're driving is, it says 60, the speed limit says 20 miles, I go at 25, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is you could crash, you could get hurt. And I think there's a lot more conversation and awareness around not drinking or driving or not looking at your phone. And while there is definitely a lot of campaigning around stopping people speeding, I mean, you see a lot of enforcement on the roads now. They're catching people who are speeding, even on local roads. I feel like we've gotten a little more comfortable behind the wheel when we're driving, and that definitely contributes. I mean, it's fun to go fast, I'm not going to lie, but it's not safe.
It's not. And as far as, we knew that distracted driving is kind of a factor. I don't know, where that is on here. And I don't know how you even prove that someone's distracted unless these, the cars have these little black boxes or you have cameras. But it seems like we have far more technology. We do have far more technology now in our vehicles. In the last 5 years, now CarPlay, Android Auto, those things are in probably 99% of vehicles, at least you can buy in the States. But I think that kind of breeds comfortness to not really pay as much attention. Maybe I'll tell you a story. In 2000 and before we moved here in 2012, 13, I was driving the opposite way over by my house when I lived in Grand Rapids, and I was watching these 2 large geese. Actually, a family of geese crossed the street. They were crossing in front of me, going right to left. And I noticed another car, a little white car, coming down over the hill. And I'm looking, I go, they're not slowing down. Oh my gosh, they're not going to stop. And as just before impact, I noticed there was a person driving and their head was down looking at their smart device. Boom. Hits one of the geese. Obviously, feathers go flying everywhere. The goose flies probably 150 feet. And then the person driving was like, oh my gosh, I just hit a bird. They stopped, thought about it, and then it kept going. I would hopefully in 2023, that person now is not looking down. And I think I'm guilty of it. My wife's guilty of it. We're all kind of guilty of doing this thing where you're looking down and up, look down and up, split second by split second, not just staring at your device. But I think even with these in-car full screen displays that manufacturers are putting in, there's still an opportunity for people to be distracted by what's on that. And I'll be honest, when we think distracted driving, our first thought always goes to the cell phone because, well, they're everywhere and, they're such a huge part of our lives. But honestly, distracted driving includes every kind of distraction. So that means people talking in the car,
You fiddling around with the radio station trying to change it.
Lost in thought.
You're turning around screaming at your kids. You're eating in the car. There's so many types of distractions that can distract us from actually driving and focusing on the road. But yes, cell phones are the biggest menace. There are other distractions. The takeaway is when you're driving, you should definitely be looking at the road.
You're right. Because I'm thinking about the speeding tickets that I've gotten over the years, and never once was it from a smart device. It's either A, conversation, like you had mentioned, or B, my brain. I was just thinking somewhere. My brain wasn't on the task. I was lost in thought, and I was like, "Oop." There you go.
Let's be honest. Nowadays cars come with so much safety built into them. Like, they have the lane assist and the blind spot monitors and brake assist and all of these. But some of the cars, especially some of the more luxury cars, they can drive themselves almost. So what ends up happening is we're relying a little bit too much on these, on the technology. And sometimes we could be taking the eye off the ball, especially when we're driving. And these stats just drive home the importance of being safe on the road. Like, yes, it's really scary to think about, I'm heading out to get some groceries and I could hit someone, or somebody could hit me and I could die. But the reality is you need to think about this before and be careful and vigilant when you're driving, but also you need to take steps and start planning for contingencies. Like, you don't want to be caught on the left foot when something terrible happens.
One of the big things that kind of stand out to me on this has to do with, it says July, August, September, and October registered the highest percentage of fatal car crashes. It says in 2006 to 2020, fatal car crashes were least common in the winter and early part of the spring. Fatal car crashes were more likely to occur on weekends and during daylight hours. Now, do you know if that's weekends, daylight hours in the same bucket, or weekends during the daylight hours? Or weekdays, weekdays during daylight hours. Because I read that and I think, when you're coming home from work and you're tired, I'm one of those drivers where I would always fight to stay awake just in regular traffic, and there was nothing I could do about it. And then you have the blind spots. Do you know what goes into that?
So the reason why we looked at when car crashes happen is we wanted to kind of question certain assumptions. So people think, in the winter it's dangerous, that the roads are icy, so people are more likely to get into accidents. In the springtime, your days are short, you have a lot of bad weather, rain, and so people think, it's bad weather. So we kind of associate external factors with driving tragedies, but the reality is accidents are happening when people are driving in the summer. Those are the summer months. Everyone's hitting the road. They're going on their vacations. Weekdays, when you're driving into the office, and daylight hours, when you're most likely to drive. So the reality is you need to be careful even when you're doing your routine driving in what you may think of as the safest conditions to drive. So that was the real takeaway from this finding. And that shook us a little bit because, I think as human beings, we don't want to take that kind of a thought in our mind. Like, we want to blame outside factors, but, we could be in danger even in what we may consider to be the safest circumstances.
I don't see a bullet point for, and it could be underneath another category, things like drunk driving and middle of the night, because the assumption would be middle of the night, but according to this, it's not really, because you're driving home from the club, or someone's driving home from the club, or maybe there's fewer cars on the road, which affects the numbers.
I think a huge part of the decline in accidents at night, or drunk driving accidents after you come home from the club, has been due to ride sharing. I feel like more people are aware of ride sharing services, so now when people go out to the club, they're not taking their cars. They're either going with a designated driver friend, or everyone Ubers there and Ubers home, and Uber is available even in some of the more remote corners of America. So it's not just a city thing anymore. So there's a greater awareness of not driving drunk or not driving at night. And I think that's definitely brought those numbers down. We didn't include every single number in our report, but since I did the research, I can tell you what I saw on the stats. Because I feel like that makes for a more interesting conversation as well.
Do you think rideshare is actually contributing to things slowly getting better, or maybe not?
Well, rideshare definitely has contributed to the decline in drunk driving fatalities, and that's been documented. Beyond that, I wouldn't know if it's making things better or not. There is so many angles to this debate.
Right.
On the one,
Sure.
so let's leave it at that. But I know for a fact that it has led to a decrease in DUI and drunk driving fatalities.
Good information, always good. Like I said, you're welcome back whenever you have something cool like this, and you would only reach out when you have something cool like this. So I want to thank you, Divya Sangam, for joining from ValuePenguin.com.
Thank you so much for having me.
All those interviews are brought to you by The Cell Shop, an Arizona-based retailer that tries to be your destination of choice for wireless services, whether Arizona, Washington State, California, Texas, or Florida. They're an authorized AT&T dealer, so visit them at cellshop.us and get connected today. So I want to thank Chris Cut, Bobchat, and Divya Sangam of ValuePenguin.com for dropping by the show today. Also want to thank Right Honda and Right Toyota out of Scottsdale, Arizona, 411.com, and of course, the aforementioned Cell Shop Wireless Services, Patreon Business Supporter, Kuya Automotive out of Wingard, Florida, Pell Construction out of Caledonia, Michigan, Beak House Small Home Design out of Ashburn, Virginia, Traverse City, Michigan, Westgate Exotic Cars and Rentals out of Glendale, Arizona, and Shipping Success by West Tank out of Boise, Idaho. You guys like how fast I said that? Get your Hard Parking Podcast gear at hardparkingpod.com. Click on the store link. Maybe it says buy merch. I don't know. Special thanks to Mark Stolman, Catherine Cox, Ada Ramos, Richard Graves, Byron Jones, Bo Jung, Alex Comina, Andrew Buckley. Want your name thanked at the end of the show? Free shout outs. Next show. Drop me an email, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com, and say, Jay, I need a shout out. Follow me on Instagram at Pfenning and join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. I can't grow without you telling the world how great the show is, so let's do this. Let's grow this thing together, and I will talk to you all next week.
Shut up!
A beater